Hello everyone, this is the AuroraRC Lightning, featuring 1306 3750 kV motors, Jim Fan 3052 props, F4 flight controller with an OSD, 28 amp 4-in-1 ESC. Behind the camera there is the VTX. It is power switchable from 25 milliwatts on up to 200 milliwatts. Camera is spec'd to be a 1200 TV line CMOS camera. Motor post, I'm getting almost 132 millimeters. The arms are almost 7 millimeters wide and 4 millimeters thick. Vertical plates are also 4 millimeters thick. Mine weighs almost 120 grams. Comes with an XT30 FRXM Plus receiver, buzzer, and 2 LEDs. I secured the battery lead down. Comes with 2 sets of props, a battery strap I didn't use, gummy pad for your battery, extra screws and nuts, a prop wrench, a heat treat tube, an extra zip tie, an extra connector, and an instruction sheet. I'm slightly breaking my format here today. I didn't show you that burst video because as we get into this flight, you're going to see something pretty quick that kind of makes it hard to watch. And there it is, the black and white screens. We see that continually throughout the flight. It seems to coincide with some video breakup. At first thought, I thought it might be my rapid fire receiver, so I tried it in legacy mode, I tried it in mode 1, mode 2, it all did the same thing. So then I got out my HD3 goggles with the LaForge module, and it did the same thing. And I even tried the Eachine EV800D goggles, and it did the same thing. Now, what's interesting about this mostly is that in the goggles it doesn't do this. And so what I did to kind of verify that, not for the purposes of making this video, just to make sure that I wasn't missing it in the goggles, is I actually took the EV800D goggles and I set them down on the table, and then I recorded the image on the screen with another camera and went through it that way. And it's only in the DVR. You don't see this in the breakup in the well, you see the breakup a little bit, but you don't see it switching to black and white, and it does it fairly regularly. Now there's a possibility that this is just a defect of either the camera and or the VTX. I can't say which without doing further diagnosis and swapping out parts. For review purposes, I try not to swap out parts. It starts to change the product, and then I'm flying something that you might not be able to get. Overall, the machine flies pretty well, and I'll put my PIDs on screen here a little bit. I did think I had to lower the PIDs a little bit, and I think that's probably due to the fact that the gyro might be a bit sensitive on this flight controller. Usually you can get higher PIDs, especially with a 1306 motor on this, to make it kind of snappy. I did feel like it was still a bit loose, but when I raised the P values anymore on pitch and roll, my prop wash started to get a little bit more out of hand, so I kept the P's kind of low in order to manage that prop wash a little bit. One of the things that's pretty interesting about this frame is they were so close to providing us with some decent camera protection. And we'll take a quick look at that back at the bench. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because essentially you should, if you're interested in this model, I'm showing you how it flies if you can stand watching it, but you need to make sure that you see more than just this video because it may not be an anomaly. Maybe they've got an entire batch of these gone out that has this DVR sort of issue, and I don't know why it only comes out in DVR. Maybe one of you can explain that to me. I just don't understand. So I would be cautious if you're interested in this product, and I would do some heavy research. I'd watch a bunch of different YouTube videos. Hopefully they're out there. If they're not out there, then I would suggest probably steering away from it. There are some other models that I can show you back at the bench that you might be more interested in. Or if you're looking for a 3-inch micro to fly around, there's a couple of good ones out, and I've got one in particular that I would steer you towards if you find that you can't get enough good research on this particular one. The thing that comes out with it most is with these 1306 motors, you actually get pretty good flight time. You can see I'm almost 3 minutes already. And we're going to get 3 minutes, I think it's about 17 seconds. And I am flying on a GNB 550 4S battery. Of course, you can fly it on 3S. I didn't do that because I'm always looking for performance. You can fly it with a bigger battery and get even more flight time if you're out there doing training and you're trying to just get better on the sticks and you want longer flights. But we're going to head back to the bench. We're going to cover a couple of things, and then you're going to go off and do your own research. Make sure this isn't a serious flaw that happens on all the review units. I do have an appreciation for the fact that they sent good props. I'm a fan of these props. I like how they fly. You may not feel that way, but for me and how I fly in my space and what I want it to perform like, I do like these props. I'm constantly changing props out and trying new things to see if it's just the pilot or if it's a motor matching issue, which it can oftentimes be. Also note that the battery strap I used in the weight is a Race Day Quads. I did not use the battery strap that came with it. And I was talking about the camera protection. Look how close they were to actually providing us with some camera protection. I mean, all they had to do is extend these just a couple more millimeters and we get reasonable camera protection. I don't know why they decided to go that short. They were so close. Additionally, to get this camera angle, I actually had to move the receiver back. The receiver does come with that little bit of foam tape on it, And initially it had one zip tie coming off this lightning bolt that you see here, just one, but you know, we've got diversity antennas, so I disconnected that or cut it off and just wrapped it around here. This is how I prefer to mount my antennas when it comes to having an XM Plus. So I moved the receiver back, and that can be quite a challenge because this pod does not come off all that easy. It's pretty secure on there, and you can see they use that mounting where they use a nut. You may not be familiar with that, but you unscrew the nut is actually inside part of the housing for the top plates, and then you screw it down tight, and the nuts are flush here on the bottom. I noted it in the quick roll, but this did not come this way. I secured this down, and the reason why it stuck out over here is because the lead was too short in order to get it out here and more pointed back towards my battery, and I really didn't see another good spot to secure the battery leads down. Up here would have been another spot, but that gets up in close to the prop line and just looks terrible. I did have a number of crashes with it, and these skinny little arms did hold up just fine. And the nice thing about skinny arms is most of your thrust is going down and it's getting around the skinny arm. When you have a wider arm, that provides some resistance for the thrust, so that's an advantage you can get out of having skinny arms with thick. I think most of the racers, or the 5-inch racers, they prefer skinny arms, but you might want to check your favorite racer to see what kind of arms he uses. The VTX is noted in the instructions the word smart audio capable, but you'll note in the quick specs I didn't say that because they didn't hook it up. I don't know if you can see this, but right down in here, there's a couple of more pads. The only reason I know this is because I looked up the receiver separately. It is sold separately. With just one more wire, presuming that the flight controller supports an extra UART, they could have used smart audio. And I could tell you that it would have been really handy to use smart audio because the VTX button is down here at the bottom. And with the camera tilt that I use, it's fairly accessible. But if you have a more modest camera angle, it's going to be kind of a pain. You're going to have to get something in there to press it. And quite frankly, I don't like button presses anymore. I've gotten spoiled with our current technology and smart audio and using button presses, especially for changing your power wattage. And I think I've got it on 200, but I can't be certain. You know, they use lights on these things, and the lights are hard to see. The lights are actually on this side. So, you know, manipulating this thing is just a little bit of a pain in the butt. I hope that all manufacturers just start skipping anything that doesn't support smart audio and just give us smart audio. And unfortunately, the product price doesn't necessarily indicate you don't get that feature. Currently, even with the 11/11 sale they have going on, this is not part of the sale, GearBest is showing a discount of 10%. This comes in at $151.99. I don't think that's a great price for the product, especially if they've all got that DVR issue. Now, the DVR issue might not be serious for you. If you only use the DVR to possibly retrieve a lost quad or to find it where you went down or what have you, then it will work just fine because it records. It just goes to that black and white screen, and when it does the switching, it's kind of harsh, and you do feel when you watch the video back, at least I do, I felt like it would strain my eyes, especially when I'd go full screen on the monitor when I started going through my flight footage. And I actually had been flying this for about 10 days and had 35 flights on it or something like that. And that's pretty typical for me. I'll fly it a bunch of times, and then I'll sit down and I'll start reviewing the footage to see what I got and see if, you know, how many good flights I think I might be able to use, or if one flight is better than another to show you how the machine performs, or maybe I fall into a circuit path where I'm just kind of doing boring circles all the time. And so I'll review that footage, and that's when I noticed it. I was like, oh goodness, I can't use this. This is terrible. It's hard to watch. So I did something foolish and I deleted it all. And then I started my tinkering and trying to figure out what the problem was. And that's when I started using all the different goggles. I started changing the channels on the VTX to see if that had any role. And nothing really changed. So I decided go out, fly it a half dozen more times, pick a flight, and that's what we saw. So I have my normal amount of flights, but I didn't have the wide variety of flights to pick from to show you. So additionally, in that flight footage, you might notice I'm a bit shaky. This flight footage is actually a little bit old. It's probably from almost a week ago. We had a cold burst that kind of hit recently. Some of you may have seen the Facebook postings that I had of snow. And it was about 40 degrees this particular day, and I'm sitting in the shade. My body hadn't adjusted to the temperatures. It kind of went from, you know, middle to upper 50s to all of a sudden 40 degrees. So my fingers are a little bit stiff, and I'm not quite as smooth or as skilled as I am on the sticks normally, but that's something I'm going to have to cope with as we get deeper and deeper into winter. So excuse the poor flight if you noticed it. It does come with the heat shrink on the motor, so it's nice and neat. I didn't feel a need to secure those down in the front. You notice in the back they're naturally secured down with how I mounted my antennas, but I didn't do that in the front because I didn't feel like it was going to come up. When I put my hands under there, I just don't think it's naturally going to come up. I think it would only come up if I got hung up with a tree or something of that nature. So I encourage you to do your research on this one, but if you're looking at this model, I am going to make a suggestion for two other models that actually perform better and are either at the same price point or less. First is another 3-incher. This is the Heliefire X140 Pro. This is a nice model. Now you notice one thing right off the bat is this model has a much taller stack due to the elevated camera and the small size of the pod. They had to do that. But this thing is an absolute beast when you add these same props to it. Yeah, I think Stu had this recorded at like 110 or 110 plus miles an hour, and I flew it around in my backyard and managed just fine. The punch outs you get are tremendous, although it's not quite as efficient as the X140. And I'll link this review video right up here. You can check that out. This one actually is cheaper than this one and outperforms it. This one's $133.99 right now in US dollars. You can get it with an XM Plus just like you got. You can change out your antenna over here if you want to. It does come with some weird looking, well, they're not weird. They look like racecraft props, but they're not racecraft props. I've flown the racecraft props before, and those flew very different. I don't know what's wrong with them, but they look to be a generic clone or a knockoff racecraft prop that I just didn't like. I had a hard time flying it that way and tuning it, so I switched to these and it came alive. So that's, if you're looking at the Lightning, maybe look at this one too. And this one, it's also 4S, and this also is fairly efficient for a little 4S. I flew this on a 450 battery, I think in the review, but check that review. I'll link this one in the review right up there too. I'll also put links to these reviews down below. This one is still the best performing micro in the 2.5 prop class that I have flown. It has got astounding performance. This actually outperforms the Aurora. Less weight, more speed, it flies really well. I don't tend to shove quads down your throat, and I feel like I'm doing that to a certain degree, but I'm worried about this quad because of the DVR problem. It may not bother you, but I think if you're looking at this, it's also worth noting that these other two will save you money and give you better performance. This one is coming in right now at $115.99. If you're watching this after the date of publish this video, or the prices have changed, but that's where they're at right now. GearBest has their 11/11 sale going on, so you may be able to find a coupon. I'll link their 11/11 sale page down below. You can check that for a coupon that you might be able to apply for one of these two. These are two of my favorites, and actually I've been flying this one every once in a while when I'm just kind of flying for fun. It is held together very, very well. The only issue that I have with it is, again, I'm not a fan of this receiver because it doesn't come with smart audio. This one does, this one doesn't. So that's one of the major feature differences between these two. But this one, I really enjoy this one a lot. So you might want to look at these two if you're looking for something like the Lightning, but maybe the Lightning isn't quite doing it for you. And I think these two are better anyways. I have had people come back to me asking if I'm still enjoying this, and yes, I am. And I've actually had people coming back and telling me that they've got one and they're enjoying it as well. I'm not getting a lot of reports of burned out motors. That was initially concerned because flying 4S on this thing and the performance it has, I think there was 1 or 2 reviews at that time out there where the motor did burn out, or one motor burned out. That may have just been bad luck, but the reports I've gotten back from people on the channel that have picked up one of these, I haven't gotten a bad report. So again, I think if you're interested in this, I don't want to hit you over the head, but do your research, please. Make sure that you see a lot of DVR footage that's good and clean, or you accept the fact that you want this model enough that if your DVR recordings operate in the same way that you've seen here today, that you're okay with it. But again, you can save money and get better performance with those two. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please let me know in that section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.